emotion
This topic,
you're feeling.
it moves me in a deep place.
In a very deep place.
Yes.
There's probably truth to that.
Yeah. Which that's a big red flag right off the bat if somebody's giving you kind of a cookie cutter number saying like if you get this amount of money then you'll be good for retirement. They don't know anything about your situation, your lifestyle, like your obligations.
Exactly.
Right? Like there are ways to invest where you don't have to sell and liquidate things and still maintain income. All right, we're back here today. Welcome back everyone to the Legacy Life podcast. Today, we're talking about, came up with the title, Income is the Outcome.
Yes.
Right? And so we're going to kind of go into why that is and what that means and everything like that and go through some misconceptions about retirement planning. We've kind of been going through a very, very big theme these last many weeks now about retirement planning and how there's many misconceptions and people's view of what it's supposed to look like is pretty off, right? And so we're going to talk about specifically income planning and why that is very important.
And why the paycheck is everything.
Right?
Yeah.
My eyes are a little watery because right before I counted down, I yawned, but I'll let you get going.
Or this topic was bringing you a lot of emotion.
This topic,
you're feeling,
it moves me in a deep place.
In a very deep place.
Yes.
There's probably truth to that.
Yep.
Either that or you're just cutting the onions before you came on the podcast today. So we're going to shake up some of the most common myths around this topic, I think. Traditionally, when people are coming in to look at retirement, they want to know, am I going to be okay? It's a big thing. And there's not a lot of confidence in a lot of people that they know they're going to be okay because a lot of people don't necessarily understand the process or what has to happen with the money they've been saving all this time. How does it translate into me having enough for retirement? How do I know if we're going to be okay? So, a lot of the messaging that comes out from the retirement world, whether we call it Wall Street, right?
Sure.
Can be, just save a certain number. If you can save at least this much money, like whatever that number is, you'll be fine. It used to be years ago, if you save $1 million, that was the target and you would be okay. That's what you were told. Today you might hear people say, it's not $1 million anymore. Now it's 2 million.
Right.
And if you ask, well, where does that number come from? You're going to get 1,000 different answers. That's kind of like, who knows? Right. But that's like what you're told. So you've heard it before. You save diligently, and you need to, you save this much money, and then you're going to need to earn this much of a rate on that money, and voila, your retirement should be taken care of.
Which that's a big red flag right off the bat if somebody's giving you kind of a cookie cutter number saying like if you get this amount of money then you'll be good for retirement, right?
Right.
They don't know anything about your situation, your lifestyle, like your obligations, anything.
Right. And if people take that number in, let's say the message is you need to save $2 million to have enough for retirement. Well, what if you are getting your retirement and you have 1.1 million? 500,000, 750,000, 1.3. Right. Well, how do those people feel? A lot of them, if they take in that messaging, there's a lot of shame around that. Oh, I haven't done enough. There's a lot of fear now around that. Well, I didn't hit the magic number because with costs and everything, we're told that this is the target. And so it can create a lot of confusion, a lot of shame, a lot of these emotional things. Maybe that's the goal in some of the messaging. Maybe it's not, but that is the result.
Right.
Of what happens in that.
So what about starting this off? What I have noticed a general theme, coming into this business and learning a lot of different things very quickly is that many times during your working years, 30 to 40 years, you have some sort of income coming in, right? And so when it comes to investment, you're not really, unless you're like in real estate or something and you're constantly like buying and selling investments and stuff like that, if you're really heavily in real estate. But like, let's say you're at a job, you have a 401k, you're not doing anything with it. Like you're contributing, you're letting it grow, hopefully. Maybe your employer matches, all these different things, right? But you're not doing anything with that investment per se. And so like the mindset is more so during your working years growth. And then all of a sudden you retire and your paychecks stop and their mindset is still growth, where the mindset shift needs to come where you need to turn that growth asset into an income paying asset, right? And so what does it look like to make that mindset shift when planning for income in
Right.
retirement?
Right. So it is about income. And unfortunately, and I'm not sure I know all the reasons why this happens, but the mantra, the philosophy of growth, 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 you're contributing and growing your money. Then they get to retirement, and a lot of people go to look for advice on what now to do with this money they've been growing. And the strategy they're given for retirement, grow.
Right.
Keep growing, and hopefully we'll get a rate high enough to keep up with what you have to do, because you have to keep withdrawing because you have to now live on this. So instead of it, they're not really necessarily told how to plan and create more new paychecks, because when you retire, your paycheck at your job goes away. So where does your next paycheck come? People might have a pension. That's a paycheck. Right. They might have maybe a rental property. There's a paycheck coming from there on a monthly basis. Social Security. These are fixed income streams that are part of some people's retirements. That's what we're talking about here. But most of the time, even with that base income coming from those sources, usually it may not be enough, though, to cover the lifestyle that the people need. Exactly. In that. So how does what they've saved translate into paychecks as well? And is the growth strategy really going to help give peace of mind and certainty on how that's going to work through retirement? That's what we want to kind of get into here. So, because like, let's see here, we're talking about, people not having the certainty. I think the stat was, if I have this right, that out of all pre-retirees, about 17% of them actually believe they'll have a very comfortable retirement. Okay? So that means if I work for a company with 1,000 employees, about 170 of them feel pretty confident that they're going to have a comfortable retirement. That's not a lot. No. So over 80% of people feel a lot of uncertainty around this. So let's just start kind of going into this, because what are the fears that people are going to feel? And then how does income planning help alleviate that? So the questions I hear most often, and feel free to put in some if I miss any here, despite all the hard work and all the years and all the diligence of saving and working all those years, there's still a quiet panic inside of people asking, like, well, what if the market crashes when I'm retired and wipes out a good portion or all of my savings? Right. What if I live too long? Man, my mom and dad, we talk to clients, my mom and dad live 98 to 100 years old. Yeah. I might have longevity in my family. It's something, we do. Mm-hmm. Okay. What if healthcare costs destroy my plan? Right. What do I do that way? These are the things that are quietly working in the background, sometimes in the subconscious. So they might be sitting on a pile of cash that they've been saving, but they're afraid to touch it. They're afraid to do anything with it. They're afraid so this causes a lot of inaction in the planning realm. Or if they are just in mutual funds or they're just in their 401k, they don't know where the income will come from. Yep. Okay. So they can tell me how much they've saved. We've saved $1 million. We've saved $500,000, but they don't know where the income's going to come from. Right. Okay. So, or what happens in a down market. So it's what we call the magic number mirage, because what usually the messaging is, or the mantra is, let's say you have $1 million or $2 million or maybe $4 million and you want to retire. But I call this, the words are escaping me right now. It's like the marketing math that they're told. So if you haven't reached the number that you're supposed to have, $2 million, you feel like a failure. We talked about that. And it leads to the shame and whatnot. But what they do is they say, okay, so you have this much money, and then they hand you something called the risk questionnaire that you're supposed to fill out.
Right.
Do you like
conservative, moderate, or aggressive?
or aggressive, right? Are you a conservative investor, a moderate, or aggressive? Exactly. So you pick one, right? And based on what you pick, they're going to then associate a certain rate to your portfolio. So let's just use $1 million just to keep the numbers here. So let's say you say you're conservative. So they might sign, let's say 4% growth rate to that. You're a moderate, so they give you 6. You're aggressive, they're going to say 8. Okay? And then they multiply what you've saved by that number and say this is going to be your income.
Right. So your growth rate is also your income rate.
Right. And it's an assumed rate.
Right.
Like, where does that come from?
Right.
4% based on what?
Right.
Well, you're conservative, so 4% equals conservative. Okay, so 4% being generated how? Right? So that's what, so people hear this, okay, I've checked off the box. This is the rate. They say it's going to be 6%. 6% of $1 million is $60,000 a year. So we're going to receive $60,000 a year. Right. And voila, this is your retirement because you're a moderate investor. My question would be, so if I'm earning 6%, how am I earning that 6%? And if I withdraw that $60,000, what if the market is also tanking the year that I'm withdrawing my 6%? Right. If I'm in this growth mindset and my account is shrinking at the same time that I'm withdrawing, what do I do next year? I have less money now to make. Do I live on 6% of the lower amount?
Right. Exactly.
Which now my income has to adjust? Because 6% of $1 million is 60,000, but if my portfolio drops to 800,000, is it still 60,000? Because that's not 6% anymore. Nope. It's a higher percentage, right? So you can see the potential problem that can come with that. Right. And where these numbers come from, nobody knows.
Right, because your income is, they're assuming that if you get that, 6% growth every year, then you'll maintain your asset and get income. But that's assuming the growth every single year. And then at the same time, you're saying if you have to, let's say the market tanks and you're still taking that out, or actually regardless, if you're taking it out, you're liquidating shares.
You are.
Which then in turn is taking away from your asset.
Right. And then next year, do you have less shares to grow?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like having a garage full of a lot of stuff. And every year you got to put some of it at the curb and sell it.
Right.
And then you get the cash from the sale, and that's what you use to live on. But in your garage, you have less things in your garage now than right. And you hope that what's in your garage that's left grows in enough value to have enough to sell next year to get enough.
Right.
And how long will it last you before it runs out in that kind of a mindset?
Right.
And so people, when they hear these things, this is why they still are afraid, because I know deep down they're thinking these things like, well, 6% okay, but it doesn't give me peace of mind that I know I'm going to be okay. It's just a number.
Right.
Right. So the assumed rate in this becomes the foundation of the financial plan. And that to me is showing why the system is broken, because it drives every calculation. Will you have enough money? When can you retire? How much can you withdraw? And based on a number, it creates from your answers to, it's just a multiple choice quiz that you're taking. And somehow this personality test or your feeling about risk is supposed to be the determining factor if your retirement's going to be successful or not. Yeah. And I think that this is one of the biggest failures of modern financial planning, is using the assumed rate for these very reasons, because it's not grounded in reality. It's not based on guarantees. It's not based on actual income streams, right? Right. Like, that if you have renters in that rental home, they got to pay you $2,000 a month if that's what it's set. Right. Like, that's a reality you can know. You also can know with that rental home that whether the house appreciates or depreciates, they got to pay you $2,000 a month. Right.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the crazy thing is that this isn't the only way to plan for income in retirement, nor is it the only way to invest.
Exactly.
Right? Like there are ways to invest where you don't have to sell and liquidate things and still maintain income.
Right. Yep. This is all based on Wall Street's favorite narrative.
Right. Exactly.
The growth mindset.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
And so, and the problem with that mindset is we're saying here, I'm not trying to beat the horse to death here, but it's always focused on the future and not a plan. It always assumes things will go up eventually, if you had a bad year. And it tells you to chase performance, but never shows you how to get paid from your portfolio. Those are two different things. And so that's why it creates a lot of confusion. And that's the real cost, is the peace of mind of the client, the confidence that they could have if there was an actual real plan.
Right. Because you're living out your retirement just kind of stressed out.
Right.
Know?
Right. And so that's why we like to do things a little bit differently when we talk about the plan. Where will your monthly income come from? When you stop working? These are the important questions you want to ask. Is someone actually sitting down with you and creating a plan that actually, what I say, diagnoses the money rather than just shows you, most firms are just kind of showing you, this is what we can do. You have $1 million, we'll get you 6%. But what's the problem?
Right.
No one's talking about it, right? So you want to get in and have someone build a plan with you, not for you. Don't have them come back and bring you the 18 pages that they put together for you. Be in the room and have the plan being created in front of you, where you can have input and answer the following questions. Where does the monthly income come from?
Right.
Where are my next paychecks going to come from when I stop working? What's the plan for inflation? What is the plan? Not just show me that this is inflation, but what's the plan to keep up with it?
Right.
What are we choosing? What are we buying to make sure that we do that? Because $5,000 a month today in 12 years is not the same.
No.
Okay. How are taxes going to affect the withdrawals? If the market drops 20%, how does that affect the plan?
Right.
If there was a way that you could create a plan that when the market drops 20%, it does not affect your income, would that be important for someone to know or to have in their plan? Would that be important to their peace of mind?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And there is.
And there is.
Yeah.
And, if something happens to one of them, does the spouse continue to receive the income? Does it go away? Does it have to be replaced some other way? What happens then? These are the things that you want answered. And if all of them can be answered in a way that brings you peace of mind, you've got a plan that's going to move you forward. And so retirement's not just about the age or the amount you've saved. It's about income. Because we've talked to hundreds of homes, and we know for certain that people come in all shapes and sizes, all different dollar amounts. They've not all saved the same amount. They've not all hit the magic number, right? Whatever that means, right? But we know that the people, even with smaller portfolios, $500,000 to $750,000, are still able to create retirements they can feel confident in, along with the people who have $4 million saved.
Right.
Everyone's lifestyle can be different. And I love the look on people's faces that feel like, we know we haven't saved enough. Well, let's put it in simplicity here. Let's take a look, and we'll map it out, and we'll take a look and say, okay, here's all your investment choices. Let's see how they impact your plan. And when you can educate them on the different ones and show them, here's these right here look like these are going to best do what you need. Their eyes light up, and they're like, whew. Yeah. A family I talked to 2 weeks ago. You've made me feel so much better today. I know we're going to make it. And we're going to be okay. We're actually going to have more than enough, and I thought we were going to be way short. Doesn't have to be that way if the planning's done properly.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
It's always a really cool thing to kind of see their minds explode too, especially when they're stressed out and they thought they didn't have enough. Right.
Right. But they're in the room with us, and they're seeing the plan being created with them. They have input, and it completely changes the paradigm. And they walk away knowing how their plan is going to work. They know exactly what it is. They know the investments that are going to be used, and they see how it's going to solve their income shortfall that they have. Yeah. That's planning. Right. And that is better than a risk questionnaire that's just going to pick some assumed rate and say, you're going to make it, the market will come back. Right. It takes all of that confusion out. That's what solid income planning should do for people. So if people are in a place today where they want to just have a conversation, a free conversation, and take a look at their income plan, what it might look like. It doesn't matter whether you're 40 or 80. If you've never had it done, have it done.
Right.
You've had yours done.
I've had mine done.
Yeah.
And
In, yeah, exactly. Um, and it can make all the difference, especially with you being involved in the process. So if this is something that you may be interested in dialoguing about, if something here resonated with you today, check our show notes. We have a link you can go to get our calendar, schedule a free consultation, and we can go through and take a look at how your planning might look for you in the future, whether you hire us or not. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button and leave any comments. We love hearing from you, and we look forward to talking to you next time.